Okay, folks, thanks for waiting. Let's get the show started here. We've got a lot of people on the line here, so thanks so much for taking the time to join us and hear about what we've got in firmware 8.1.1. As always, Peplink's mission continues to be delivering unbreakable connectivity anytime, anywhere. And so a lot of our effort and work that goes into this firmware is really centered around that core mission. So before we dive into 8.1.1, I just want to point out SpeedFusion Cloud has been a really big part of our efforts in 2020. Again, furthering that mission of unbreakable connectivity anytime, anywhere. And we've been putting more effort into the marketing side of that. And so up on our website, you guys can go check out some new videos that we've put up there to help better explain SpeedFusion Cloud, how it works, and what the benefits of it are, most importantly. So go check out on our website, just right there at the top, you can see the SpeedFusion Cloud tab, and then you can check out those videos. Love to get your guys' feedback on that. But the topic at hand today, firmware 8.1.1. Right now today we are in release candidate 1, so we're really close to this firmware being finalized. If you haven't checked it out yet or read up on it yet, you can see that on our forum. Just go there and search for 8.1.1, and I'm sure you'll find the latest download links. We should be hitting our release candidate 2 any day now. Engineering's been working tirelessly to get this firmware finalized and out the door for you folks to get this into production for you. So go ahead, kick the tires now, and it should be a new version coming out very shortly. And hopefully before the year's over, we'll have this finalized and release candidate, but if not, shortly thereafter, the first of the year. So what's in this new firmware? We've got a lot of new features. Again, SpeedFusion Cloud's been a really big focus of us. And so this is a new feature that actually wasn't in some of the earliest builds of this beta, but we're trying to make it easier and easier for folks with or without IT experience to optimize and protect cloud applications. So obviously in 2020, everybody's been doing Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet. We've all been using these online collaboration platforms, and we've all been having all kinds of problems with them, and our connectivity being one of them. So with the latest version of SpeedFusion Cloud and the latest version of this firmware, we are making it even easier to select the applications that are important to you and give you just a really simple way to make sure that those applications get optimized and prioritized, and you're not wasting bandwidth protecting applications that aren't critical to you. So we'll walk through that and show you how that works in a little bit. Some other key features in 8.1.1, we've got Wi-Fi mesh support. This has been something that's been asked about for years. And the really cool thing is this is supported on a lot of our new routers that have 11 AC Wi-Fi. And it's also supported on our Wi-Fi access points that support 802.11 AC Wi-Fi or newer. And so we'll show you more about how this integration works, but it's a great way to take an existing Peplink, if you've got a Balance 20X or a Surf Soho Mark III. Again, any Peplink router that has that 11 AC Wi-Fi built into it, all you need to do is buy one more Peplink access point, and you can create your own mesh network to wirelessly extend the coverage of that existing router. If you've got a Peplink router that doesn't have built-in Wi-Fi, that's okay. That router can still manage the mesh profiles for any number of other Peplink Wi-Fi access points. So you can still use that non-Wi-Fi enabled Peplink router as the core of your mesh network, and then again use additional Peplink access points to create that mesh Wi-Fi coverage. And of course, we'll dive into that at the end of this presentation and show you how that works. Last but not least, we've got OpenVPN client mode. This is one of those features that's really important to certain people, and other people it's not a big deal for. But for those of you that use OpenVPN, we see a lot of people using it with the different privacy VPN services out there. A lot of those offer OpenVPN support so that you can connect your router directly to one of those again, privacy VPN services. And a lot of companies just operate OpenVPN servers as well for remote employees or for remote networks that they have. So regardless, if you're a user of OpenVPN, you can now use OpenVPN client mode. This is a separate license, but it's officially enabled in Firmware 8.1.1. Some other features that I want to show you, or just at least highlight here to make you aware of, that are also enabled on 8.1.1. These aren't quite as major as the other ones I've showed you, but again, these are the types of features that if they're important to you, they're a really big deal. First up is supporting DSCP. So DSCP is a type of packet header or metadata about different packets that different applications will tag their traffic with. So real-time applications, voice over IP applications, applications that either need priority or some other type of special treatment. We now support firewalling based on the DSCP values, so you can really quickly block or identify or allow traffic that's tagged with the specific DSCP value that you're specifying. And you can also use outbound policies with DSCP values. So again, you can carve out policies that make it really easy to identify traffic that's important to you, either to prioritize or optimize or block. So just one more way that you can identify traffic now. A second popular one is WAN PoE. So our Flex module Plus add-ons for like our SDX or our EPX, there's an 8-port Ethernet module that comes with that, and that supports PoE on it. And more and more, we're seeing people wanting to use those to have WAN devices, either hanging HD1 domes off of it or some other sort of WAN device. In any case, 8.1.1 allows you to make those Flex Module Plus Ethernet ports capable of being used as a WAN. Another big one to point out, our APIs, as always, continue to grow, continue to improve, and so there's a lot more settings and features that are now accessible through either our device local API or our in-control cloud API. So if you haven't used those, go check them out. Our website has the support documents for each of those. Again, really full-featured APIs there. And we've had customers build really cool user interfaces using these APIs. And so again, the power of this is really being able to use that local API for making it calls directly to your router, and then using in control as well to either relay those local API calls or using the in control API directly as well. Last but not least, here we've got the Flex Module Mini. This is the slot that's used in the Balance 20X, and the newly launched 380X and 580X. So with this module, you can now plug a DSL connection directly into your router. You don't need a modem in between. So DSL is more and less popular depending on the country or state that you live in. So for some, DSL is not really big news, but for others, it's a really big deal. So we have now added a Flex Module Mini module that's capable of supporting VDSL. Two other features to throw at you here. We've got NetFlow. This isn't a new feature, but we've expanded the capabilities of our NetFlow integration. Again, it's one of those features, if you don't know what it is, you don't have to worry about it too much or get too excited about it. But if you do know what it is, it's probably something you use every day, and it's a very critical feature for you. And so we've added the ability to utilize 2 NetFlow servers or receivers in this latest firmware, and we've got a few other fine-tuned elements for you to better optimize your NetFlow integration. Another really cool feature that we announced is our air monitor support. This is something, if you've used our air probe feature, our air probe product in the past, you've utilized this to scan the Wi-Fi environment in your area. So you can use this as a spectrum analyzer and a tool to really get a better view of what the overall RF environment is in any given location. So we've expanded this to all of our routers, again, that have built-in Wi-Fi, and all of our access points as well. And so we'll show you what this looks like and the great reports that In Control 2 kicks out when you turn this feature on. So We talked about the AP firmware, the router firmware, but we need to talk about the AP firmware as well. Like we said, there's mesh Wi-Fi support and there's this air monitor support. These are both features that are coming out in this new AP1 firmware. And so depending on the generation of your product, whether it's 11AC, 11AC Wave 2, or our newest Wi-Fi 6 access points, we have firmware to support all these great new features that pair up with our routers. So again, this new Wi-Fi access point firmware gives you that mesh support, so you can use these to wirelessly extend your network. We've got that air monitor support, so you can use any access point in your network to be an RF scanner and give you that spectrum analysis capability. And last but not least, we've also added DPI support, so you can get nice reporting from your devices about which applications are being used by which clients. And so this is really cool for areas where maybe you've put a Peplink out there in a large scale hotspot, and it's not really a Peplink router. You've put a Peplink access point to support a large scale distributed Wi-Fi hotspot. You know, maybe you're putting these in coffee shops or restaurants or any number of locations that you may not have control over the overall infrastructure, but just using a single Peplink access point, you can get the DPI support built into that access point instead of needing a larger router to support that capability. So if you give me just a second here, I will pull up some of my screens here and we'll start diving into some of these features and show you real time how they work. And we'll hold Q&A for after that. Just 1 second, folks. Okay, with any luck, you are seeing the dashboard of my Peplink UBR Go. So we've got a couple connections here in play. We've got our wired WAN, we've got our cellular on Verizon and our cellular on AT&T. And then you can see we've got a SpeedFusion Cloud connection down here to Chicago. We are going to go to the SpeedFusion Cloud tab. And again, really big feature here is we've got this optimized cloud application button here that's shown up. So this is, of course, new. In previous webinars, we've talked about the overall SpeedFusion Cloud setup, about choosing your location, connecting individual clients to the cloud, or connecting a Wi-Fi SSID to the cloud. And those are great, right? Those are easy, you know, button click types of ways to get either an individual client or an entire SSID sent over to the cloud so you can protect it any way you want. But the problem with that, depending on the device and depending on what you're doing on that device, is all of those things on that device or on that SSID might not be mission critical. And so then you're sending additional traffic to the cloud that maybe doesn't need that protection or doesn't need to be routed that way. And so this new button here, Optimized Cloud Application, allows us to just inspect the traffic coming from all different places and pick out the just important applications that are a priority to users. So that way you don't have to create these other policies. You can just, again, select those single applications or services that are most important to you. And it doesn't matter if you're plugged in over Ethernet or Wi-Fi, or if you switch from your iPhone to your laptop. We'll pick those applications out regardless of device or SSID. So all you have to do, in my example here, I've got a tunnel to Chicago connected. And I've selected Zoom as one application, but you can see from the list here, we'll just blow that out of there. We've got just a few different applications to start with. We've got Google Workspace, Office 365, so this covers Teams and Skype for Business, and then we've got Zoom, Lifesize, and Salesforce. So of course, Zoom's a big deal. Of course, Office 365 and Teams is a big deal. And for me, Google Workspace is a daily driver as well. So if we save that, apply those changes. If we come over here to the status tab, We'll check our SpeedFusion status quick. You can see we're connected to SpeedFusion Cloud. We've got all kinds of traffic flowing. Things are good. If we check out our active sessions, let's just take a look and see where all this traffic is going. So you can see Google, Zoom, all kinds of these applications that we just picked out are going to the SpeedFusion Cloud. There's probably a few applications that aren't switched over yet because we just updated this policy. So there might be a few applications that haven't hit this policy yet. But again, that's all I needed to do. I don't have to do any outbound policies. I don't have to do any extra SSID configuration, no extra settings to make that work. So you can really easily carve out those applications that are a priority to you. And again, this isn't a final list, right? This is where we're starting. We found the hot button applications right away. And so absolutely reach out on the forum, reach out however you wish to request other applications that are a priority to add to this list. This is something that we've got the capability to keep updating and growing. So again, please share your thoughts on that. All right, I'm going to pause for just a second and pull up some more demos for you here. Okay, folks, you should be seeing the dashboard of a balanced 20X. If that's not what you're seeing, shout at me in the Q&A. All right, no news is good news. We're going to keep moving. So this is the balanced 20X. We're going to show you the Wi-Fi mesh capabilities. The balanced 20X, if you're not familiar with it, is an awesome value. This is a $399 router that includes a built-in cellular connection. So here you can see we've got an Ethernet WAN and a cellular WAN. It's also got this Flex Mini slot labeled number 2 here, which in this case is not being used, but it's got the capability to add a second radio to it. So awesome product for $399, but we're going to show you how you can use this product to build a mesh network over Wi-Fi. So if we click over to the AP tab, I've set up a few different things in here already, but we'll just walk through this. I've set up an SSID. It's labeled webinar mesh. This itself isn't specifically the mesh network. This is just the SSID that anybody would connect to. And so we set this up just like any other SSID we would normally do. Nothing special there. Then the next tab down here is the new one. We've got a wireless mesh tab. And so this is where you create your wireless mesh profile. So if we open this up, you create a mesh ID and you select the frequency you want to mesh on and you select the shared key. So really simple. The mesh ID and the shared key need to match on all of your devices, as does the frequency. So you've got 3 settings that you have to be concerned about to get your mesh network up and running. For me personally, I would pretty much always choose to mesh on 5 gigahertz. There's a lot more spectrum available for Wi-Fi in that band versus 2.4. So it's just going to give you a little better performance in general. If you know what you're doing and you want to choose 2.4, go for it. Feel free to try both, see what works well. But again, there's just a lot more room for traffic on 5 gigahertz. So you probably will have a better experience there. Nonetheless, get that set up. Make sure you've got those 3 fields written down so that you can take it to your other devices. Depending on your model and depending on the access point controller capabilities of your model, you may have to take this 3rd step to get the mesh up and running. In my case, on the 20X, you do. So you have to come under the settings and then the access point profile, and you have to enable the mesh profile that you just created. If you don't have that enabled, you'll get a dead giveaway on this wireless mesh tab. This frequency will be grayed out, indicating that it's not actively being used. So if you set this up and you see that grayed out, that's your cue to come check out the settings tab and then look at your access point profile and make sure that it's enabled and of course saved there. So once you've done that, if you've ever used our access point controller, you can use it to push these settings to other access points. So let's say you have 10 access points that you want to get set up in some sort of a mesh configuration. You could log into each one of those, and the access points each have these wireless mesh settings. I can show you that quickly here on another unit, if I remember the password. I don't think I do. Nonetheless, we can get that quickly. This is another nice feature of our access point controller. We standardize all the logins and all that fun stuff so that you don't have access points hanging out there with default passwords and those things. So AP controller is one nice way to manage that. Cover your butt from other problems there. So this unit looks a little bit different on the dashboard. It's almost contradictory here. We've got the WAN, which has an IP address, but it says it's disconnected. So what the heck? Well, this unit's meshed wirelessly right now. So it does have an IP address, but that WAN port is disconnected. So it looks incorrect or strange, but this unit is in mesh mode already. If I come under the AP, just like we saw in the router, there's a section called mesh. And so this is real similar. The only difference is you've got this enable disable box, whereas on the router you had the profile that you had to go enable this mesh setting in. And here it's just one extra setting, but it's all on the same screen. So again, make sure these match. Once you've got that set up, you're good to go. So again, you could log into each of these access points, set that mesh setting up manually, or if you're into automation, you can plug each of these access points into your router that has the mesh profile and the access point controller feature turned on, and give it about 5 or 10 minutes and they'll sync up and they'll take that mesh profile, and then you could unplug it and go power it up somewhere wirelessly, and it will seek out that mesh network and be ready to deploy. So you've got a couple different ways to speed up that deployment if you're trying to do this on more than one unit. Now we also support WDS. WDS is really a legacy type of configuration. It's like a static mesh. You can achieve wireless extension of coverage, but you have to uniquely program every single link in the chain, and it's not dynamic, not flexible. So it's really cumbersome from a maintenance standpoint to do WDS. So mesh achieves the same benefits, but automates all of those connections again with those 3 shared settings. So much easier to implement. If we look at the access point status tab here, you can see the mesh or WDS info. And you can see the transmit receive rate, how much traffic is pushed over that mesh. Just real simple, just like a Wi-Fi client. If we come back to the router, we can check the mesh status as well. This is under the AP tab here. And we get this nice little simple topology graph. You can see we've got our Wi-Fi mesh. That's the name of this router. That's your base in blue. And then you've got this little wireless link over here to this red dot. This is our meshed access point that we were just logged into. So you can see the duration, uptime, and again, the overall transmit receive rates. So really straightforward, really powerful functionality though. Again, any Peplink router or access point that has 11 AC Wi-Fi or newer will support this feature, and they're interoperable. So if you've got an AC router with a Wave 2 access point, those can play nice together and form this mesh network. Again, this requires the access point and the router firmware to be on the latest versions that we're talking about here. So again, go to the forum and check for those different firmware versions. Again, on the access point, there's 3 different versions depending on your hardware generation. Again, 362 is for the 11AC, 373 is for 11AC Wave 2, and 381 is for our newest Wi-Fi 6 access points. All right, I'm going to pause again and we'll pull up some more demos. Okay, we're back. Next up, we're going to show you DSCP in the firewall and the outbound policy. This one is pretty straightforward, but even myself, I needed to be shown where it was to really use it. And so I'll return the favor to you as well. If we go to the outbound policy first, we can try this. Destination, sorry. If we look under protocol, there it is, DSCP. So you've got a whole bunch of different predefined DSCP values. You can choose the one appropriate for your application that you're trying to either control the policy, outbound policy on, or again, firewall it. And so you can do a priority rule, make sure it's using the WAN first, or make sure it's using SpeedFusion Cloud first, depending on what you're trying to do here. You've got a lot of flexibility built on top of the outbound policy rule builder here. If we go under the firewall, just for those of you that don't know, there's two sections under our firewall. We've got our access rules, that's the stateful firewall, so the layer 2 through 4, and then we've got content blocking, that's our layer 7 firewalling capabilities. So you've got all kinds of DPI blocking capabilities, all kinds of content URL type categories you can block there. But the DSCP stuff is under that stateful firewall section. So under the inbound firewall, we can just add a rule. Again, if you look under protocol, you can find the DSCP section there. And again, you've got those same predefined DSCP values that you can choose, and then you can allow or deny those depending on, again, what you're trying to do. Okay, next up, NetFlow. This one's a little hidden, and rightfully so. This is usually something either large enterprises or large service providers are using. It's not generally an end user facing feature. But for those of you that don't know, we're telling secrets here. We've got our support CGI page. This is kind of a landing place for less customer facing features or new features. And you can see under here, we've got NetFlow. It's real simple, just enable it. Again, so in this firmware version, we supported NetFlow previously, but now we've added this second NetFlow server. So if you've got multiple NetFlow servers, you can now speak to 2. You can choose the different NetFlow version up there. And then we've added some timers for flow timeouts and those kinds of things. So you've got just a few more knobs and dials to really tweak your NetFlow settings and get that working the way you want. Not much else to show there, but again, if you're using it, this will make a ton of sense to you. And if you're not, no worries. Another one that's kind of tucked away on the support CGI page is our air monitor. So you can see it just below here. Again, it's a real simple checkbox. Just enable it, click save. Okay, we got to go to the dashboard and apply those changes. If you're on this page, it's kind of like, how do I get back to the dashboard? So under this LAN, WAN, Ethernet settings, click to show, and then there's a quick link to the dashboard there. You can always use the back button too, but in any case, you can see we've got changes pending, so let's apply that. Now, I already had this turned on earlier today, so I don't need to wait too long for this to apply, but I will pull up the IC2 side of this and show you what this air monitor capability enables. So let's go back to the dashboard first. So this is our Balance 20X that we've been using for this demo with the mesh and now the air monitor support. If we look under reports at the device level, you can see this Air Probe reports air monitor. And so when you turn this on, it scans the spectrum constantly in the background. So it's always keeping tabs on that. And so you can go to any point in time and retrieve the RF environment's properties at that given time. So this is a great tool for remote support especially. So if you've got a large Wi-Fi deployment with lots of users and they're bringing their own devices and there's all kinds of variability there, it's really hard to trace down problem reports, right? this person or that person will say, yeah, I had issues at this time or that time. And you just really don't have a lot to go on unless it's like a complete access point being down or something like that, right? If you exhaust the obvious problems, you kind of run out of tools to keep troubleshooting with. And so this gives you that next step. If the obvious problems aren't the source of your issue, you can come in here and go to, again, whatever time that user's reporting an issue, retrieve that spectrum information. So you can see there's some, on this particular channel, we've got some really heavy utilization from time to time. You can see overall average utilization of the channels. You can see how many devices there are, access point being an access point or a Wi-Fi router, station being a client device, a phone, a tablet, a PC. And then there's other devices, right? Sometimes there's non-802.11 devices on these channels as well. So going into this air monitor mode gives you a lot more visibility than what like a Wi-Fi scanning program might give you on your laptop. Then you can see the overall access point distribution. You can see we've got a lot of people using 80 megahertz channels here. So like I was talking about earlier in the mesh conversation, there's a lot bigger channels and more spectrum in general in 5 gigahertz. So that's where you see a lot of people using it. So these really big wide ones that cover up this whole area, those are maxing out all the spectrum in that area. So you've got a lot more bandwidth on those really big channels as opposed to these smaller 40 megahertz or even 20 megahertz channels. So again, you can just get a better view of what you're competing against, what you're fighting against in the RF space that you can't normally see with your own eyes. So that covers most of the demo for today. I'm going to just pull up the questions here. I think there's quite a few that have ticked in over the webinar, so I will just start from the top and answer as many as I can. First up, will the Wi-Fi mesh support be supported in the AP1 enterprise APs? Yes, those are 11 AC capable, so the answer is yes, they get mesh. Will the air monitor support be used with the local AP? Yeah, that can be used on, local API. I misread that one. I'm not sure on that question. What will the air monitor be accessible through the API? Not sure, totally possible, but that's a good follow-up. I see a question for Oracle Cloud on the new SpeedFusion Cloud application prioritization. We can definitely add that to our list. I see a question about the VDSL. Are we going to add that to more models, or is it only in the Flex module? My understanding is it's currently only in the Flex module. VDSL is just not a common last mile access technology in the US. So I just frankly haven't invested a lot of time in really understanding what other VDSL capabilities we have there, Chris. So that's another good one for follow-up. I see a question, hopefully it was answered earlier, but can APs mesh with PepWave routers with integrated Wi-Fi 2 or just other PepWave APs? The answer is yes to that question, so long as that PepWave router has 11 AC Wi-Fi in it or better. So again, the Soho Mark III, the Balance 20X, those are good examples of PepWave or Peplink routers that have integrated Wi-Fi that do support the mesh feature. BR1 Mini would be an example of a product that does not support the mesh feature. That's just 11N on the BR1 Mini. Another good one to point out on routers that support mesh is the Transit Duo. That's got the 11 AC Wi-Fi in it as well. So another good choice for Wi-Fi mesh. Another question, does choosing mesh frequency disable clients from connecting on that frequency. In our implementation, no. Sometimes vendors do that. We allow one radio to simultaneously serve both purposes. So again, it might be a little bit counterintuitive to use the same radio for both versus one for clients and one for meshing. But again, with just the overall much larger spectrum on 5 gigahertz, that's usually going to net a better result regardless. But if you mesh on 5 gigahertz, you can definitely only allow clients to connect on 2.4, but it's really your choice to allow that to share both purposes or not. And meshing with SSIDs, the SSID side is really not directly related to the mesh. The mesh is just your backbone to that access point. So each access point can have different SSIDs on it if you want, or if you use the controller to manage that, or just manually program it, they can all have the same SSID and they'll behave just like a wired access point would if users roam from one to the other. See another question, can an AP connected over mesh have wired clients plugged into it and be able to access various networks? I've done it in a real simple test. I've had a device plugged into the Ethernet port of a wirelessly meshed access point, and I've been able to pass the untagged VLAN through. I believe it's a true layer 2 connection, so VLAN tags should pass as well for other SSIDs. I just can't say that I've personally tested that out yet, but you should have that capability as well. So question on when these firmwares will be released. The access point firmware is live now, and the router firmware is in release candidate 1 stage. So we're talking just a couple of weeks before that's officially GA. But regardless, you can get all this firmware right now on the forum in the beta or release candidate state. Another question about Air Monitor. When that's enabled, the Wi-Fi interface is dedicated for that. That's correct. Yeah, that will disable your access point functionality when you turn on Air Monitor support. So it's a great tool, but you need to be aware of that. If you only have one access point there, it's not going to be good to use during production hours. It will disconnect a client. So usually you would use that if you've got multiple access points and you can use one to dedicate for that functionality. But if you've got, again, a busy remote location that you don't want to drive out to a lot, that's a great way to extend your toolbox from remote. I see a question about Wi-Fi mesh and using like an all-in-one antenna for cellular and GPS. So a lot of people use, for obvious reasons, the all-in-one style antennas like our Puma 401 or Puma 42 or 221, so that they can get one single antenna punched through a wall, punched through a ceiling, something like that. Not have to have a whole bunch of different punches through whatever surface they're mounting to. And so, if you're putting it really just depends on where your other mesh Wi-Fi access points are. If you're running that all-in-one antenna outside, then you've got all your Wi-Fi antennas outside and up, somewhere conceivably. And so if you're meshing to other devices that are outside, to other buildings, things like that, that would work great. If you're trying to mesh to other things that are inside the building, then you're just going to have much less signal in that situation. So then you would want to look at maybe splitting that all-in-one into maybe using the paddle antennas for the Wi-Fi and only using cellular and GPS on the exterior. But just lots to consider there in terms of antenna configurations when you're trying to combine mesh and cellular or Wi-Fi and cellular into the same antenna. It's really just all about placement at the end of it. I see a question. What benefit is mesh if you have all of your access points wired? There is no benefit, frankly, unless you're going to need to make one of those access points wireless. So that really is the rule of mesh. That is absolutely my policy. If you can run Ethernet to it without headache and you expect it to run all day, every day, 24/7 with lots of users, I would wire it. Mesh is great. Mesh gives you tons of flexibility, and it helps you solve those problems that you can't solve with a wire. But if you can get a wire there, do it. It will work better long-term for you. There's just so many variables in wireless that plugging it in over Ethernet is always the better choice if that's a practical one. See a question just about the AP controller. What happens if that fails or is disconnected? Do the APs still work? Yeah, the APs don't require a persistent connection to the controller. Obviously, if the controller is your router and it loses connectivity there might be bigger issues with your router, but fundamentally the access points don't need that to keep operating. They receive their configuration and kind of run autonomously while still reporting back and sending client data to the controller. So there's not a critical need for that AP controller to stay there. Again, just the fact that it's integrated into your router might make it required in one way or another. Can you mesh with non-Peplink APs that support 802.11s and 802.11ac? I have no idea, Mark. I apologize, but not tried it. It's possible, but I wouldn't put money on it, and frankly, I wouldn't do it in any production environment. But if it's something in your home or somewhere that really doesn't matter, give it a shot and let us know. I'm not sure either way on that one. See, another question is OpenVPN conceptually similar to SpeedFusion and how it works with respect to outbound policy firewall? Yes, it's similar. It's just another destination in this example. And I just want to be clear, we've supported OpenVPN as a server on the router for a while so that you can use it. You've been able to use a Peplink to allow OpenVPN clients to connect to it. This new feature and add-on license in 8.1.1 is allowing the Peplink device to connect to another OpenVPN server as a client on that one. But yes, conceptually, the question you asked is very similar. I see some questions about that OpenVPN and different services like ExpressVPN. I personally am not an active user of those services, so I really can't speak to those specific integration questions. I would take those questions to the forum, see how far you can get, and post your results up on there for, there's ExpressVPN, NordVPN, there's lots of different VPN services out there. So I expect there will be quirks and kind of different aspects to each of those that might be needed to make them work. But yeah, I think that's best done on the community forum where people with experience on any of those platforms can chime in. I see another question about a specific bug fix in 8.1.1, if it's there or not, regarding access point firmware packs. I don't know. That would be, if you don't see it, again, ask it on the 8.1.1 forum thread, the thread with that forum download link. I would ask the question there, and I think that's probably the best place to get that answer on a really specific bug fix that you're looking for. I see a question on the price for that OpenVPN license. I believe that's a $99 add-on, one-time add-on for each product or each router. I haven't looked at the price list today, so I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure it's $99 to add it to whichever router you want it on. And again, that's a one-time license, not a recurring. All right, folks, we're going to wrap it there. I'll give you 8 minutes back. Thanks so much for attending, and take care.